House will be elected next week. How that person is able to manage these factions within the Republican Party will all come to a fore in 10 weeks when this all happens again. In Washington, Lama Zach, ABC News.
Let's pick things up there with this week's Management Matters. Joining me, Tony Reardon, President of the National Treasury Employees Union, and Mallory Bowman, Managing Editor of Research at the Partnership for Public Service. Tony, I'd like to start with you. The shutdown was averted, but you blasted Congress anyway. Here's part of a press release your organization issued this week. Financially strapped agencies spend countless wasted hours and resources preparing for a shutdown. That included preparing shutdown plans and providing informal notifications to employees about their work status, process that had heightened their anxiety and fear. All right, Tony, there's a cost to shutting down the government. There's also a cost to coming close. Tell us more.
Yeah, Morris, you're absolutely right. You know, our government was brought to a shutdown in 2013, and then this year, a couple days ago, we were brought to the brink once again. And now we've put federal employees and the country in a situation where 10 short weeks from now, we're looking at the possibility of another shutdown. And, you know, frankly, that's just no way to treat a workforce. Moreover, we have a situation where the government is really, you know, the American people are kind of losing faith in the American government because, in fact, this is no way to run the business of the most powerful country in this world.
Now, the Office of Personnel Management just released new data from the 2015 Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. Director Beth Colbert touted those numbers on the OPM blog 2 days before Congress passed the stopgap funding measure. Quote, "One highlight in the government-wide results that is especially meaningful for me and other leaders this year is a 1% increase in the Employee Engagement Index score to 64% from 63% in 2014. Mallory, you reviewed those numbers. What do they tell you, and will they take a hit in the year ahead?
Sure. We actually haven't reviewed the numbers yet. In the coming weeks, the partnership will get the data from OPM and begin our process with Deloitte of analyzing the best places to work in the federal government, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those data. I think the early information that we've heard from OPM is really encouraging and exciting. Indeed, we know that leadership matters, and leadership is really a strong predictor of federal engagement. And this administration has put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the senior executives have engagement worked into the performance contracts, that it's a clear expectation. The administration set a cross-agency priority goal of people and culture, making sure engagement is a meaningful part of agencies' operational plans. The other thing that we've seen is within individual agencies, we've seen agencies such as the Department of Labor, the Department of HUD, taking concrete steps to engage their leadership core, making sure that their leadership core takes key steps towards employee engagement. And I'm hopeful once we look at the actual data, we'll really see the same increase.
Let's focus on December 11th. Tony, are you optimistic Congress can hammer out a deal before then? Or will the government lurch from one fiscal crisis to the next until the next election?
Well, Morris, I can tell you that I'm certainly hopeful. I would not describe it as, you know, a situation where I think it will be averted. You know, that remains to be seen. But I can certainly assure you that NTEU is going to be working extremely hard to try to make certain that, in fact, a government shutdown is averted. That's just no way to treat our federal employees, and as I said, it's certainly no way for the government to operate. I think we can, and I think Congress has to do better.
And Mallory, you told FedScoop that leadership can have a big impact on employee engagement and satisfaction. How can agencies harness that power when these budget battles put them at the mercy of a dysfunctional appropriations process?
Sure. I think the appropriations process is certainly a challenge. It provides some difficulties in planning and making sure that the agency is able to have a long-term vision of where it's going, and I think that's really a challenge to leaders. One of the things that we've seen in our analysis is when leaders understand the issues within their agency and have the same understanding as the rest of the workforce, they're better positioned for change. We do an analysis every year that looks at the gap between leaders' perceptions on the employee viewpoint survey and employee views, and we've seen that there's always a gap. That gap doubles when you look at some specific issues around how employees are managed regarding their performance. When leaders take the time to really meet with their workforce, really understand the meaning behind these data, I think we really do have the power to harness change and see improvements within agencies.
Meanwhile, Uncle Sam has bigger fish to fry, like an aging IT infrastructure, an aging workforce, and an outdated hiring process. Tony, can federal workers tackle those types of problems right now? Do they have the bandwidth?
Well, actually, my concern is really around the bandwidth in agencies. The lack of funding in these federal agencies is incredibly poor. And until Congress understands the impact of not providing the funding that these agencies need so that federal employees have the tools and the resources that they need to do their jobs, and frankly that the American people need for them to do the jobs, I got to tell you, I'm concerned about the bandwidth. Just if you look, for example, in the IRS, since 2010 has lost nearly 18,000 employees. That's a tough way to be able to get the work done. And so when we talk about an aging infrastructure, clearly you need employees to help put that infrastructure in place. So I'm not certain that the bandwidth exists.
Tony Reardon and Mallory Bowman, thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.